Wife joked, "At least my ex had a bigger." I answered back with revenge. She'll never forget. Have you ever built a perfect night for someone only to have them use it to destroy you? That was me, June 12, 2019, on a rooftop in Chicago. The night was supposed to be unforgettable. It was, but not in the way I had planned. I'm Noah Grant, and this is the story of how my wife humiliated me in front of everyone we knew. It started with one cruel joke and ended with me erasing myself from the life I thought I was building. If you've ever felt blindsided by someone you trusted, stick with me. By the end, you'll see how I turned a slap into a new empire. For months, I planned her 34th birthday. I rented a rooftop terrace with a skyline view, booked a live jazz quartet, and ordered lobster rolls from her favorite River North restaurant. I spent money like it was water, telling myself love was worth every drop. I wanted her to look at me and see devotion carved in neon lights. The cake alone took weeks to design. Sugar flowers, edible gold, layers of Belgian chocolate, everything symbolizing her journey. I wanted her to feel celebrated. I wanted her friends and family to see me as the man who could give her the world. I thought effort equaled love. I thought sacrifice equaled respect. Guests arrived. The sunset turned the lake orange and pink. Glasses clinked, people laughed, the quartet played smooth standards. I stood proud, waiting for her to notice, waiting for my moment. When it was time for speeches, Sabrina thanked everyone, her mom, her sister, her yoga instructor, even the catering staff. Then she looked at me, her voice cool and effortless. At least my ex had more personality to bring to the party. Laughter scattered like broken glass. A few gasps, and then her hand whipped across my face. A slap so loud the music froze. A sting that outlasted the burn. I could have shouted. I could have argued. I did neither. I simply straightened my jacket, turned away, and walked through the crowd. No goodbye, no scene, just silence. My silence was louder than anything she could have said. That night, while her party raged above the city, I was packing. 2 suitcases, a backpack, my drives, and every document that proved I existed. By dawn, I was gone. No note, no message, no trace. I didn't run away. I erased myself. Flagstaff, Arizona became my new world. A mountain town with quiet skies and people who didn't ask questions. I rented a studio above a bike shop. The landlord was an ex-ranger with kind eyes. He never asked why I paid cash. He never asked my story. Days I broke my body on construction sites. Roofing in the sun, drywall in empty condos, hauling boxes for strangers moving on with their lives. Nights, I rebuilt my mind. I studied finance, coding, operations, anything that could sharpen the dull edges of my brain. I failed often. I invested in a flashy coin called Stellar Nova, watched it crash, wired money to a trading platform that evaporated the second my deposit cleared. Each mistake was tuition. Each loss carved another lesson into me. By the spring of 2020, small wins began stacking. I bought a squat ranch house at the edge of town for less than the price of a luxury car. I gutted it, worked nights, flipped it for double. I sold it to a young couple who cried when they held the keys. Profit wasn't just numbers, it was impact. 1 project became 2, 2 became 4. I was building momentum without chasing miracles. Then I started buying boring assets, storage units, garage bays, laundromat notes. They didn't sparkle, but they printed steady cash. I became a silent partner in 2 online consultancies. I never lent them my face, only my brain. We turned failing businesses into survivors. We didn't sell dreams, we fixed leaks. By 2022, my birth name was a ghost no one used. But in circles that valued results, My new identity carried weight. That's when the letter arrived. Cream-colored paper, elegant ink, no stamp. Mr. Grant, your reputation has not gone unnoticed. You are invited to the Summit of American Capital, January 21st, 2023, Lakeshore Grand, Chicago. Chicago, the city I had fled, the city that burned me alive and kept the ashes as a souvenir. My first instinct was to rip the letter in half, but something in me knew. The story wasn't finished. The slap on the rooftop was only the prologue. I stood at my window that night and stared at the San Francisco peaks. The sky over Flagstaff is so wide it humbles your voice. In the glass, my reflection looked like someone I almost recognized. Not the man who was slapped. The man who didn't need to prove he'd recovered. Neighbors started to notice me, but not in the way that made my skin itch. Ms. Rivera from downstairs waved every morning, handing me muffins she baked at 5 a.m.
The bike shop guy, Wes, let me climb the ladder to his roof to fix a leak and paid me in cash and coffee. Quiet community makes a person brave again. At night, I built systems. I wrote checklists for crews so the work didn't depend on my mood. I learned to read balance sheets like weather reports. If the pressure shifted, I knew when to close the windows and when to let the wind in. Every month I wrote a letter to myself. 1 page, what I learned, what I lost, what I won't repeat. I kept them in a shoebox like ferry tickets. Proof I'd crossed something. When the invitation sat on my desk, it glowed like a dare. I booked a flight anyway, not to chase old ghosts, to seal something I had already finished. The difference matters. It ends up inside every word you say. I packed 1 suit, the charcoal one that fits like accountability. 1 watch, not flashy but honest. A leather notebook with a pen that never skipped. If I was going back, I was bringing a version of myself that traveled light and thought heavy. The night before I left, I walked the trail behind the apartment and breathed pine and dust. I told the mountains I would come back, not because I owed them anything, but because they had held my silence without asking for applause. Some places deserve your return. Others deserve only your footprints. On the plane, I didn't rehearse speeches. I rehearsed letting go. There is a difference between confronting a past and seeking its permission. I wasn't asking for permission. I was bringing my own door. The plane touched down at O'Hare on a gray January afternoon. Snow clung to the runways like powdered chalk. Chicago looked the same, but I wasn't. I stepped off with a suitcase that held more confidence than clothes. At the curb, a driver in a black suit held my name on a placard. He handed me a folded Tribune before I even asked. "Thought you should see this, sir." His voice was polite but heavy, as if he already knew what was inside. The headline knotted my stomach. Local finance personality charged in 8-figure fraud. The photo was Sabrina, hair a mess, mascara streaked like war paint, handcuffs biting her wrists. The article named her boutique firm, Beacon Ridge Equity, and then my name. Sources indicate an alleged mastermind, Noah Grant, disappeared in 2019 with investor funds. My pulse hammered. She hadn't just destroyed herself. She tried to resurrect me as her shield. My old identity was now bait in her sinking ship. But I wasn't the same man she once slapped under 1,000 lights. 4 years of careful paranoia had trained me well. I had receipts, records of every deal, bank logs, escrow trails, contracts, emails, a paper fortress that proved where I'd been. Within hours, I retained 3 law firms, the kind that charge a week's salary for an hour's work. They weren't just attorneys, they were proofreaders of reality. They built walls around me before the storm could arrive. Every invoice, every timestamp, every partner statement lined up. Still, I needed the story told. Facts protect in court. Narratives protect in life. I called a reporter I once helped, a woman named Ava Moreno. Years ago, I'd slipped her information on a crypto scam targeting retirees. She remembered, and she always paid her debts. We met in a hotel lounge that smelled like leather and quiet decisions. She set down a recorder and gave me a look that said, "Don't waste my time." I didn't. For 6 hours, I poured out details: contracts, tax filings, property flips, silent partnerships. She connected every dot with precision. 36 hours later, her article detonated online. The Builder Who Vanished, From Silence to Systems. It told the story of a man humiliated, erased, then rebuilt. It didn't beg sympathy, it presented evidence. It showed math. And people believed math. By noon, federal prosecutors issued a statement. After reviewing new evidence, Noah Grant is not a person of interest. We are investigating the unauthorized use of Mr. Grant's personal information. That was my vindication. Not applause, clarity. That night, I walked into the Lakeshore Grand. Chandeliers glowed like galaxies. Marble floors echoed with power. The summit of American capital was in full swing. 300 investors, each one sharper than a blade. And me, finally unafraid. I spotted Sabrina within minutes. She stood at the bar in a black dress that tried to hide her panic. Her smile was painted on, but her hands trembled each time she raised her glass. Our eyes locked. Time folded. Her glass slipped from her hand, shattering on marble. Red wine bled across white linen. She froze. I didn't move. I gave her a small nod. Not anger, not forgiveness, just acknowledgement. She understood. She knew the game was over. Back in my suite, city lights cut the night like stitches. I stood by the window, breathing in the kind of quiet that only comes after a siren stops. I slept without dreaming. The body knows when a page has turned, even if the mind still runs a finger under the line. 2 nights later, at 11:43 p.m., a knock rattled my door. I opened it to find her. No makeup, hair tangled, dress wrinkled like it had slept on her. Her eyes were swollen from crying, the kind of tears that leave salt on skin. "Noah," she whispered, my name falling out of her mouth as if it were a secret. "Please, I know I don't deserve this, but I need help." Her voice carried equal parts fear and memory. The queen had lost her crown. I let her in. She clutched the glass of water I poured like it was currency. "Colton turned on me," she said, voice fraying. "He told prosecutors I ran everything. He said you were the mastermind, that you taught me how. They're going to bury me." Her knees hit the carpet. She wept, words spilling like broken glass in a hallway. "I know I hurt you. I know I humiliated you. But please, Noah, I'm terrified. I don't know what to do." 4 years ago, her tears would have shattered me. I would have mistaken sound for sincerity. But now, I saw it for what it was. Weather. Storms come, storms pass. They're not personal. They're predictable. I stood over her, steady as a doorframe. "I'm not angry at you anymore, Sabrina." Her eyes widened, confused. "Being angry at you would be like being angry at rain for falling. It's what rain does. You didn't just lose me that night. You lost access to me, and access is the only currency I don't inflate." Her tears slowed. My words cut deeper than silence ever could. She searched my face for mercy and found a boundary instead. I opened the door. She walked out. That was the last time I let her inside anything I owned. The summit asked me to speak when another presenter fell ill. I took the stage before 300 investors, lights warming the top of my head like a spotlight on confession. "I disappeared in 2019, I said. Not to hide, to edit. To learn who I was when applause wasn't currency. Revenge isn't a finish line. It's a treadmill. You burn, you sweat, you go nowhere. The only worthy fire is the one that builds. The room held its breath. Then applause came like weather. I let it pass through me. I didn't need it to breathe. Afterward, a man with silver hair and a voice like sandpaper shook my hand. "Your restraint is expensive," he said. "Most men bankrupt themselves on the need to be right." I smiled because I recognized my former balance sheet in his sentence. That night, I wrote a new letter to myself in the leather notebook. 1 page, 3 lines. I am finished with what finished me. I am building floors, not seeking rooftops. I am generous with doors and stingy with keys. Sabrina's trial began in late March. The courthouse smelled like marble and old paper, the kind of place where truth pretends to weigh more than lies. Reporters crowded the steps like gulls when a fisherman returns. I showed up once. That single day was enough. Her lawyers tried to throw my name into the fire. "Isn't it true," one asked, "that Noah Grant was involved in Beacon Ridge equity?" Judge McCarthy adjusted her glasses and cut the air with 5 words. "Mr. Grant is not on trial." The rest of the sentence didn't need oxygen. The jury listened to arithmetic dressed as exhibits. Bank statements, recorded calls, emails signed by Sabrina and Colton, witnesses describing fake pitches and staged returns. It was a mountain of pretense collapsing under its own weather. Colton had flipped. His testimony was methodical and merciless. He described the forged contracts, the shell LLCs, the investor dinners with rented smiles. He confessed his role but traced every blueprint back to Sabrina. His words tightened the lid on the box she built. In the back row, I felt nothing sharp, not pity, not hate, distance, the kind that hardens into landscape. She had become a stranger wearing a familiar face. The mind lets go when the heart signs the release. After 6 hours of deliberation, the jury returned. Guilty on all counts: fraud, conspiracy, wire fraud, money laundering, each charge a rung downward, 7 years federal, with restitution stretching behind it like a slow shadow. Her empire of mirrors became walls. I walked out into a blue afternoon that felt lighter than a verdict. No cheers, no champagne, just lungs doing their job. Closure isn't someone else losing. Closure is you putting down what was never yours to carry. Back in Flagstaff, I sat on the studio floor and turned the shoebox of letters onto the wood. Pages fanned out like wings. I read them one by one, watching a man learn to speak his own language. Each letter sounded more like a person and less like a defense. Work didn't stop. Crews showed up at dawn with thermoses and jokes. We turned a shuttered car wash into bays that hummed with purpose. Ms. Rivera brought empanadas and scolded me for forgetting breakfast. Wes let me patch his roof again just because he liked the view from up there. I started biking in the evenings. There's a hill behind the apartment that will teach your lungs humility. At the top, the town spreads out like a toy train set. Everything small enough to forgive, everything far enough to love. A year after sentencing, I returned to Chicago, not for a gala, for a ribbon. We opened the Grant Center for Resilient Youth on a block that had learned too many sirens by heart. The lobby smells like new paint and possibility. There's a music room with a drum kit that forgives every mistake. A maker space with sanders and clamps and a rule on the wall: measure twice, speak once. A kitchen where recipes are stories. A library where the loudest thing is relief. At the ribbon cutting, a boy with freckles raised his hand. "Are you the man who disappeared and came back stronger?" he asked. The crowd chuckled. I smiled in a way that felt like breathing. "No," I told him. "I'm the man who stopped needing to come back at all." Later, I sat on the front steps with the program director, a woman named June who could balance a budget and a broken heart in the same afternoon. She asked what kept me from bitterness. I told her the truth. Bitterness is a mortgage with no house. I prefer rent-free living. We laughed the kind of laugh that leaves medicine behind. Kids spilled out of the building with sawdust in their hair and paint on their hands. A girl showed me a birdhouse she made with a door that swung perfectly. "It's for the birds that get lost," she said. Sometimes I still see the rooftop, the gold-trimmed cake, the skyline pretending it didn't see anything. The moment a joke became a map. It doesn't hurt now. It's just a photograph in a hallway I don't walk anymore. Applause fades, meaning echoes. The summit gave me applause. The center gives me meaning. One is noise that flatters. The other is work that fills. If you've ever been humiliated or abandoned, hear this. You don't have to burn bridges. You don't have to hold press conferences for your healing. You can disappear from what doesn't love you and appear in a life that does. Disappear into your work until the person who slapped you would need a security badge to get past the lobby. Disappear into friends who don't make you audition. Disappear into habits that turn storms into weather reports. Build receipts. For courts, if it comes to that. But mainly for your mind. The mind forgets on purpose. Paper reminds on principle. Keep the letters. Keep the timelines. Keep the keys in your pocket. When they knock, as they always do, let compassion open the door. Let dignity close it. You don't owe anyone a spare key to a house they tried to burn. You owe yourself quiet rooms and honest windows. I didn't run. I edited. I deleted the parts that mistook endurance for love and apologies for currency. I saved the parts that knew how to build, how to forgive without returning, how to leave the porch light on for the right kind of company. At night, I still walk the trail and count steps like inventory. I say the names of the people who stayed. I let the others go without ceremony. Not everyone deserves a finale. Some stories end when you stop reading them. If this story gave you room to breathe, subscribe to the future you. Not to me, to the version of you that knows how to set a boundary and then honor it. Like this for the days you didn't chase. Share it with the friend who needs a door more than a speech. The city where it happened is still there. The lights are still on. But I'm done with rooftops. I'm building floors. I'm leaving doors unlocked for kids who think disappearing is the only way out. It isn't. Sometimes disappearing is the way in. I am not the man who was slapped. I am the man who heard what the silence was trying to say. And I answered with a life that doesn't need an audience.